What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I have very clearly voiced my opinion on how I think the Detroit Lions should spend their 7th overall pick, and if for some reason you've missed all of those videos, I believe the Detroit Lions should do everything in their power to trade it down into the NFL draft, trade from that 15 to 25 range, and get a multitude of picks and a multitude of capital back for the number 7 overall pick. However, this is not a shared opinion by a lot of my subscribers. A lot of people think that they should stay at 7. There's a lot of people that tell me that there's no way they can move down, there's no way they should move down, because they would rather get the elite prospect at number 7 than two good prospects at 15 to 25, 15, late first, early second rounders. Now, in this video today, I wanted to talk about, kind of go a little bit more in depth about not only why I think the Lions should trade out of the 7th overall pick, but why the Detroit Lions need to trade out of the 7th overall pick. Why the value isn't right, the pick isn't right, and the Detroit Lions would benefit far more by trading the 7th overall pick than actually retaining it and selecting a player at that spot. Now, before we get into the video, before we get into talking about why the Detroit Lions need to trade the 7th overall pick away, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It's quick, it's free, it's easy. Again, it takes 2 seconds out of your day. So if you could take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe, I would be greatly appreciative for it. But with all that being said, and without any further ado, let's get into talking about the number 7 pick and why the Detroit Lions need to trade away and move down in this upcoming draft class. Now, before we talk about who the Detroit Lions can take at the 7th overall pick, we have to know who's going to be available at the 7th overall pick. And while I by no means claim to be a genius when it comes to mock drafting, I did go through the first 6 picks and picked who I think is the most likely to go at the position and who I think the likely top 6 selections are. So with that being the case, I have Trevor Lawrence going at number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That seems to be a unanimous pick. I have Zach Wilson going number 2 to the New York Jets. I have Jamar Chase going to Miami at the 3rd overall pick, adding a huge weapon for Tua Tagovailoa. I have Justin Fields replacing Matt Ryan in Atlanta with the number 4 overall selection. I have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Penei Sewell with the 5th overall pick to protect Joe Burrow. And I have Devontae Smith going 6th overall to the Eagles to give Jalen Hurts another weapon and give Jalen Hurts a little bit of a safety net and another big time wide receiver for him to work with, again, and actually a former teammate of his. So with those picks being the case, and obviously I don't know if that's going to be the way the draft lays out, but as of right now, that is how I see the class laying out. That is how I see the top 6 going off the board, and I don't think that's super unrealistic to think that is the order the top 6 prospects will go. Now, with that being the case, that leaves the Detroit Lions picking at the 7th overall spot, and the top candidates there are Kyle Pitts, a tight end, 2 cornerbacks, which the Lions cannot take, which is very unfortunate for them. But looking at realistic options for the Detroit Lions to take, looking at positions of need and best player available, you are stuck with really 4, 5, maybe 6 potential players to take at the 7th overall pick without reaching too far down the board. Now, those players are Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver out of Alabama, Rashad Slater, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern, Samuel Cosmi, the tackle out of Texas, Kwity Paye, the pass rusher and the edge rusher out of Michigan, Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State, and potentially Trey Lance if you want to take a quarterback. However, looking at those top options, looking at those guys that the Lions are left with at the 7th overall pick, without really looking too far down the board at a reach, not going too far down the board at a guy that will go much later in the 1st round, those are really the realistic guys that you can expect to go around the 7th overall pick. Now, going through each and every single one of those prospects individually, individually, Jalen Waddle to me would be a fine option if he did not come off a big ankle injury. He did break his ankle a few months ago, and while he was, technically healthy enough to play in the national championship, he did not do so. So we have not seen Jalen Waddle play after his ankle injury. We have not seen his explosiveness. We have not seen him work out. We have not seen him play in a football game since the really bad ankle injury that hospitalized him and obviously sidelined him for the rest of the college football season. And to me, wide receiver isn't really the value that the Lions can afford to take. It's not a luxury that the Lions can afford to take at the 7th overall pick. And if we were going to take a wide receiver at 7, I want a guy that's not coming off injury. If Jalen Waddle was healthy all season, then you could consider it, because when he's healthy, when he was at 100%, Jalen Waddle was arguably the most dynamic wide receiver in college football, arguably the biggest play wide receiver, and arguably the best wide receiver on that Alabama roster. However, I have not seen him play since that ankle injury, and that really concerns me when taking a player at 7. Rashawn Slater is a name that's been thrown around for the Detroit Lions at the tackle position. My only problem with him is he only really played solely left tackle at Northwestern, and while I think he's a solid player, we have an elite left tackle in Taylor Decker right now, or a left tackle that played with elite stature last year for the Lions, and he is actually projected to move inside to guard or center. We have an elite center in Frank Ragnow, and I'm not taking a guard with the 7th overall pick when I don't think he's even the best player in his draft class, and I don't even think he's the best offensive lineman at number 7. Now, the other offensive lineman that can be considered at the 7th overall spot is Samuel Cosmi, the tackle out of Texas. Now, Cosmi did play left and right tackle for the Longhorns throughout his career. He has long arms, a big frame for a tackle, which is very, very solid, and we could very realistically put him at the right tackle position and solidify that spot for quite a while. However, I don't think he's a great player at tackle. I think he's a very solid player. I think he'll be a very solid tackle in the NFL, but he's far from the elite prospect that people want to get at the 7th overall spot. And I get that he's not the flashiest player, but I don't really care about that. I don't really care if you're the flashiest, the biggest name player, if you are going to help my team. However, I don't see Samuel Cosmi being a needle mover. I don't see him moving the needle and making this team that much better. And even if we were to take an offensive tackle, I don't think he's going to be a great player in the NFL. When looking at Cosmi, I see a very solid tackle, a long tenured starter in the NFL, but I don't see a top 10 tackle. I don't see an elite tackle. And honestly, I'm having trouble even seeing him get to a 2nd or 3rd contract with the Detroit Lions if we do select him. Now, Kwity Paye is another name that's been thrown around, staying in Michigan, obviously a Michigan edge rusher, a guy with a lot of potential, an incredibly high ceiling, but a guy nonetheless that didn't really even put up numbers in college. So I get the hype around Kwity Paye. I get the excitement of his athleticism, his ability, his ceiling is incredibly high, and is arguably one of the highest ceilings in the draft class. However, what are we getting on day 1 with Kwity Paye? That's what I want to know. Because yeah, the potential is great. Potential is awesome for a prospect, but if you're not getting anything day 1, I'm not taking you at number 7. At number 7, I need you to be a slam dunk home run pick, and Kwity Paye to me is not that guy. Kwity Paye is a developmental guy, a guy that in year 2 or year 3 can be a great player, but a guy in year 1 that could be severely limited and may not be able to help your team as much as you would like. Micah Parsons is a name that I've thrown around, and Micah Parsons is a big name prospect for the Detroit Lions at the 7th overall pick. And while I think he's a great playmaker, I think he's got all the talent and all the ability to be a all-pro, Pro Bowl type linebacker. He does have a lot of off-the-field issues. He does have a lot of issues that make you stop and scratch your head and say, well, are these off-the-field issues going to continue in the NFL? Is he going to get in trouble off the field in the NFL? And even if he is incredibly productive, even if he is a top linebacker, how often is he going to be on the field if he continues to make poor decisions off of it? You're looking at Trey Lance, the last big name prospect that could very likely go at the 7th overall pick. Are you really going to take that high potential quarterback? Because obviously, as I mentioned in previous videos, Trey Lance has the potential and has the skills to be an elite quarterback, but he's very raw. He's not very there on the mental side of the game, although I think he's a pretty smart quarterback. He doesn't make decisions incredibly quickly, doesn't really get off his first read very well, is a very raw and a very very potential-based quarterback if you do take him at the 7th overall spot. And who's to say the Lions don't like Jared Goff? Who's to say Jared Goff doesn't come here with Anthony Lynn and have a good season in Detroit? To me, you can't take that high prospect quarterback. You can't take the 4th quarterback off the board at 7. To me, it's hard to say the Lions are going to take Trey Lance with the 7th overall pick when they just traded for a quarterback that has shown proven success in the NFL with a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive system. I think the Lions wait for a year if they are going to draft a quarterback at all, and I do think Jared Goff is the starting quarterback going into 2021 for the Lions. And with that being the case, with them not really knowing what they're getting with Jared Goff, whether they're getting a great quarterback or an average quarterback, I don't think they use the 7th overall pick on a quarterback. Now, with that being the case, with all those prospects not really being that appealing to the Detroit Lions, then you move down into the mid to late first round pick with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I wouldn't necessarily be mad at the 7th overall pick, but I think you could still trade down and get him in that 10 to 15 range if you trade down just a couple of spots. If you want to trade down farther, Gregory Rousseau will likely be available in the later rounds. Zaven Collins will likely be available late in the first round. Nick Bolton will be available early second round, late first round. Like, these are all very good players, and players I actually think fit the Lions' needs much better than the top 7 guys. However, are you really going to reach all the way down the board to take a late first round prospect with the 7th overall pick? None of those guys, to me, although those are all great players and players that I would love to have in Detroit in Lions uniforms, I'm not taking any of those guys with the 7th overall pick, except for maybe the exception of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So for the Detroit Lions, the value for 7, the value at the 7th overall pick isn't there for them. You know, there are teams that do need Kyle Pitts and could likely trade up to jump Carolina if they want to get that star tight end and that star weapon. There are teams that may want to jump Dallas and get a top cornerback prospect before they take one off the board. There is value at the 7th overall pick for a lot of NFL teams. However, the value isn't there for the Detroit Lions. And if the value is not there for you at 7, why force yourself to stay at 7 and take a prospect? Why force yourself to reach down the board for a better fit and a better player when you could trade that pick away and still get the same player, but recuperate more capital and get more draft picks later while not having to reach down the board as far? You know, to me, it doesn't make sense for the Detroit Lions to stay at 7. If you stay at 7 and you're the Detroit Lions, you're either taking a wide receiver coming off a very bad leg injury who you haven't seen play in many months since the injury has occurred. You're taking a couple decent offensive linemen that could potentially eventually develop into a solid tackle or a solid guard for your team. You're taking either a very risky, high potential guy but very low floor guy in either Kwity Paye, Micah Parsons, or Trey Lance, or you reach tremendously down the board to get yourself a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a Zaven Collins, or a Christian Baltimore. You know, it doesn't make sense for the Lions to stay at number 7. It really doesn't make sense, and I know people are going to argue with this, and I get comments all the time saying, well, why would the Detroit Lions trade down to get a couple of good players when they could get that potential elite prospect in the number 7 pick? But if you are one of those people, and I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not trying to, discourage you from having your own opinion, and I'm not saying that you can't disagree with me, because I actually enjoy the debates, I enjoy the conversation, but if you are one of those people that wants to stay at 7, who are you taking? Who is that elite prospect that's coming off the board at 7 that's going to absolutely change the Lions organization? Because I don't see that at 7. With the way the draft likely is looking to play out as of right now, Waddle to me is not going to move the needle, especially with him coming off a bad ankle injury that could really, really affect his explosiveness, which is his trademark for a top wide receiver. I'm not taking a decent tackle prospect when there's better linebackers, there's better defensive talent, and our offensive line is already pretty decent at every single position. I'm not taking Trey Lance when I already have Jared Goff, at worst a average quarterback in the NFL that I can very easily and very realistically win football games with. I don't know if I'm willing to take the high potential prospect of Micah Parsons or Kwity Paye while having that low of a ceiling and while not really knowing how my coaching staff is going to be when developing talent, not knowing how good my linebackers coach is going to develop linebackers, how good my edge rusher coach, my front 7s, my defensive lines coach is going to develop Kwity Paye. You know, those are probably the top options at 7, is those high potential guys, but at the same time, are you really willing to risk a high potential low floor guy with the number 7 overall pick? You know, to me, the value isn't there. To me, the better fits, the better values, and arguably better players sit later in the draft class, and it makes the most sense for the Lions to trade away and trade down for a couple more picks in this draft or a couple picks in next year's draft while moving down a few spots at a time. Now, with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. I just wanted to come on here and really talk about the 7th overall pick because I get the idea, right? I get the argument that no, we should stay at pick 7. We should get this, you know, potentially this hypothetical elite prospect that can change the game. But to me, looking at the way this draft board is laying out, looking at the way this draft is going to play out more likely than not, there isn't an elite prospect. There is not a slam dunk prospect at the 7th overall pick. And as I said earlier, you're either going to end up with a high potential wide receiver coming off a gruesome leg injury, you're going to get a couple decent tackles, or you're going to get a high potential low floor kind of a player that could very easily turn out to be a bust at the 7th overall spot. There is not value for the Lions at the 7th overall pick, and there is no player at number 7 that is going to be considered an elite prospect when the 7th pick jumps on the board. The only way the Lions should stay at number 7 is if Ja'Marr Chase falls, if Penei Sewell falls, if Justin Fields falls, if there is a crazy reach in the top 5, in the top 6, if for some reason the Jaguars don't go Lawrence, if for some reason the Jets take Penei Sewell over Zach Wilson, you know, if for some reason the Dolphins pass on Ja'Marr Chase, if for some reason, you know, the Eagles pass on Devontae Smith, then maybe, just maybe, you consider staying at the number 7 spot to get that high value, high floor, and high ceiling prospect that you're going to know is going to help you day one and get you a lot of value for the future. But until one of those things happens, unless one of those elite prospects falls, or unless something crazy happens in the draft, the Lions cannot afford to stay at the 7th overall spot. The value's not there, the players aren't there, this hypothetical elite prospect that people keep talking about is not there, and for all we know, staying at number 7 and getting said elite prospect is just as likely for them to have a bust in the prospect, is just as likely, if not more likely, to be a waste of a pick than if we were to trade down to the middle or later round. With all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this. Obviously, I've voiced my opinion a lot. You know my opinion. You know that I think we should trade this pick away, but I'd be very curious to see where you guys sit. Again, I get a lot of comments saying we should sit at 7 and take our elite prospect, take our elite player at number 7. Personally, I don't see that player at 7. I'd love to see what you guys think. I'd love to hear what prospect you think is that elite player that's going to change the franchise forever. I'd be super interested to hear what you guys think that prospect is and where you think the Lions should go with the 7th pick. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching the video. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Thank you all for watching. Bye, guys.